the storm. Ethan Blackwood's calloused hands gripped the wooden hammer as he drove another nail into the support beam. The rhythmic sound of construction filled the remote mountain clearing where his cabin stood. At 38, his muscular frame bore testament to years of physical labor, both in his craft and his humanitarian work. "You're wasting your talents up here." Clara's voice cut through the percussion of his work. She leaned against the cabin's entrance, her designer clothes a stark contrast to the rustic setting. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped impatiently against her phone screen. Ethan continued his work without looking up. "This cabin is our future, Clara. Something real, something we built." "Built?" she scoffed, her heel grinding against the fresh timber. "You mean something you built while I watched my youth slip away in this backwater town?" The hammer paused mid-swing. Ethan set it down deliberately, turning to face his wife. Her beauty was undeniable. Honey blonde hair, green eyes that could charm anyone, and lips that always seemed poised to deliver another cutting remark. He had watched those lips curve into genuine smiles once, back when they first met, before the hunger for more consumed her. "Nobody's keeping you here," he said, his voice steady despite the weight behind his words. Clara's laugh held no warmth. "Oh, don't tempt me, darling. We both know you'd be lost without me." The conversation died as Ethan resumed his work, each blow of the hammer carrying more force than necessary. Clara disappeared inside, leaving behind the lingering scent of her expensive perfume, a gift she had bought herself with his credit card. Later that evening, in their bedroom at their main house in town, Clara watched Ethan pack for his upcoming volunteer mission. His movements irritated her. Everything about him lately seemed to grate on her nerves. 3 months in some godforsaken village, she muttered, scrolling through her phone. "What about my needs, Ethan?" He zipped up his duffel bag before responding. "The school needs to be built before the rainy season. Those children deserve an education, and I deserve a husband who thinks about more than hammering nails and playing savior to the world." Clara stood, crossing the room to stand before him. She pressed herself against his chest, a move that had always worked before. "Stay. I'll make it worth your while." Ethan gently but firmly stepped back. "My flight leaves at 6. He shouldered his bag and headed for the door, pausing briefly. "Try not to max out all the credit cards while I'm gone." Clara's face contorted with fury. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? Mr. Perfect with his perfect morals and his perfect cabin. You make me sick." "Good night, Clara." The door closed behind him with a quiet click that somehow hurt more than if he had slammed it. Alone in the room, Clara's phone buzzed with a message. A smile spread across her face as she read it. "Miss you already, beautiful. Can't wait to show you what real excitement feels like." She typed back quickly. "Soon? Very soon." In the guest room, Ethan lay awake, his mind racing despite his outward calm. Clara's behavior had been growing more erratic, more desperate. He had noticed the late-night texts, the unexplained expenses, the lingering scent of unfamiliar cologne. Yet he remained silent, gathering information, watching. Ethan Blackwood was not a man who acted on impulse or emotion. When he struck, it would be decisive. The next morning, before dawn, Ethan drove to his cabin. He needed to secure certain items before his departure. Inside a hidden compartment in the bedroom wall, a feature Clara knew nothing about, he stored a USB drive containing financial records, photographs, and documents, evidence he had been collecting for months. As he worked, his phone rang. The number belonged to Marcus, his old friend from college who now worked in cybersecurity. "It's happening," Marcus said without preamble. "Your wife's lover? He's been making moves. Big ones." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "Tell me." "Damian Graves. Professional con man with a gambling problem. He's been working Clara for months, but that's not the worst part." Marcus paused. "He's been asking about the cabin's value. Word is he's got some heavy debts coming due. Let me guess, about the same amount as what the cabin's worth." "Bingo. Want me to dig deeper?" Ethan glanced at the USB drive in his hand. "No. Keep monitoring them. I'll handle the rest." After hanging up, Ethan accessed the hidden safe behind a loose stone in the fireplace. Inside lay more evidence, bank statements showing Clara's suspicious transfers, Photos of her with Damien, records of Damien's criminal history that had taken months to compile. He added the USB drive to the collection. "Your move, Clara," he muttered, securing the safe. The flight to the remote village was long, giving Ethan time to plan. He had known about Clara's infidelity for months, had watched her fall into Damien's web with calculated patience. Some might have confronted her immediately, fought to save their marriage. But Ethan understood that sometimes you had to let the trap spring before you could catch your prey. His phone buzzed as he landed. A text from Marcus. "They're moving faster than we thought. Clara's been to 3 banks today." Ethan deleted the message. Everything was proceeding exactly as he had anticipated. Clara and Damien would act soon, thinking they had him cornered. They had no idea they were playing directly into his hands. In the village, Ethan threw himself into the school construction project. His strength and skill earned the respect of the local workers, while his quiet intensity kept them at a comfortable distance. He worked harder than anyone, pushing through the heat and exhaustion, letting the physical labor clear his mind for what was to come. 2 weeks into the project, his phone rang. Clara's number flashed on the screen. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice betraying nothing of what he knew. "I've sold the cabin," Clara announced, her voice dripping with malicious glee. "Damien needed the money, and well, you weren't using it anyway." Ethan's response was measured, calm. "Hope it works out." A pause. He could hear her confusion at his lack of reaction. "That's it? No begging? No threats? Would it change anything?" "You're pathetic," she spat. "All these years, I've been suffocating in your self-righteous world. Damien sees my worth. He knows how to treat a woman. Goodbye, Clara." He ended the call and turned back to his work, ignoring the concerned looks from his fellow volunteers. Inside, a storm was brewing, but it wasn't the blind rage Clara had hoped to provoke. It was something colder, more calculated. The cabin had been more than just a building. It had been his snare, and Clara and Damien had just walked right into it. That night, Ethan sat in his sparse room, laptop open to his email. Marcus had sent him surveillance photos of Clara and Damien celebrating their victory at an expensive restaurant. In one image, Damien was kissing Clara's neck while she laughed, her wedding ring clearly visible. Ethan opened another email, this one containing detailed records of Damien's gambling debts, his connections to local loan sharks, and the fraudulent accounts he had set up in Clara's name without her knowledge. Each piece of evidence had been carefully collected and verified, building an ironclad case that would destroy them both when the time was right. He began composing a new email to his lawyer, setting the next phase of his plan in motion. Clara thought she had won, thought she had broken him. She would learn, as others had before her, that betraying Ethan Blackwood was a deadly mistake. The next few weeks passed in a blur of construction work and careful planning. Ethan maintained his routine, giving no indication that anything was amiss. His calls with Clara became less frequent, each conversation shorter than the last. She interpreted his brevity as defeat, never suspecting that every call was being recorded, every admission of her betrayal documented. Marcus kept him updated on Clara and Damien's activities. They had moved into his house now, throwing lavish parties with his money, celebrating their supposed victory. Damien had even started wearing Ethan's clothes, sleeping in his bed, drinking from his collection of aged whiskey. "They're getting sloppy," Marcus reported. "Damien's been bragging about how he played you. Some of his old victims have started coming forward, willing to testify." Ethan absorbed the information silently. Each detail, each act of disrespect, was another link in the chain he was forging. When it finally wrapped around their necks, they would understand the true meaning of revenge. The school project neared completion as Ethan's plans crystallized. He had always been good with his hands, skilled at building things. Now he would use those same skills to dismantle 2 lives, piece by piece, until nothing remained but ruins. "You're different from the others," one of the local elders told him one evening. "There is a darkness in you, hidden behind those quiet eyes." Ethan merely nodded. The old man wasn't wrong. The darkness had always been there, carefully controlled, waiting for moments like this. Clara had awakened it, and soon she would wish she hadn't. The final day of the project arrived. As Ethan watched the children enter their new school for the first time, his phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. Everything was in place. The evidence had been verified, the paperwork filed. The trap was set. He booked his return flight that evening. It was time to go home and show Clara and Damien exactly what kind of man they had crossed. They thought they knew him, the quiet craftsman, the dedicated volunteer, the forgiving husband. They were about to meet the real Ethan Blackwood, and their world would never be the same. Chapter 2. The Return. Ethan's return to town carried none of the fanfare Clara might have expected. No dramatic confrontations, no public scenes. He simply appeared one morning, renting a modest apartment on the outskirts of town, his presence a quiet reminder of unfinished business. The sight of his house, their house, transformed by Clara's gaudy tastes, made his jaw tighten. Gone were the handcrafted furniture pieces he had built, replaced by modern monstrosities of chrome and glass. Through the windows, he could see Damien lounging in his favorite chair, feet propped up on an antique coffee table that had belonged to Ethan's father. Enjoying the view? Damien's voice carried across the lawn. He stood in the doorway, wearing one of Ethan's custom-made shirts, a glass of expensive bourbon in his hand. Clara's not here, if you're wondering. Shopping trip. Your credit cards are getting quite a workout. Ethan turned slowly, meeting Damien's smug gaze. Nice shirt. Oh, this old thing? Damien plucked at the fabric. Found it in the closet. Clara says I wear it better than you ever did. She might be right. Ethan's voice remained neutral, giving nothing away. It suits a man of your particular talents. Something flickered in Damien's eyes. Uncertainty, perhaps, or the first seeds of fear. He covered it quickly with a laugh. You know, I expected more of a fight from you. The way Clara described you, I thought you'd be different. Sorry to disappoint. Ethan started to walk away, then paused. By the way, how's the gambling going? Still owing money to the Castellano family? The bourbon glass slipped from Damien's fingers, shattering on the porch. Ethan continued walking, allowing himself a small smile at the sound of Damien's cursing behind him. In his apartment, Ethan powered up his laptop, connecting to the surveillance system Marcus had installed throughout the house. The cameras captured Clara's return from her shopping spree, arms laden with bags bearing designer labels. You won't believe who I saw today, she announced, dropping her purchases on the couch. Your husband's back in town. Damien paced the living room, still agitated from his encounter. I know. He was here. What? Clara's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. What did he say? What did he do? Nothing. He just stood there, calm as you please. Then he mentioned the Castellanos. Clara's face paled. How does he know about them? I don't know. Damien snapped. He shouldn't know anything about my business dealings. Your business dealings? Clara laughed hysterically. Is that what we're calling your gambling debts now? Ethan watched their argument escalate, noting how quickly their united front crumbled under pressure. He opened his email, sending a pre-prepared message to Marcus. Phase 2 could begin. The next day, Ethan visited his old friend at his cybersecurity firm. Marcus's office was a maze of monitors and hard drives, each screen displaying different aspects of Clara and Damien's lives. They've been busy, Marcus said, pulling up financial records. Damien's opened 3 new accounts in Clara's name. She has no idea she's being set up to take the fall when his schemes collapse. Ethan studied the documents. Send copies to the usual address. And the other matter? Marcus grinned. The evidence from the cabin's hidden safe? Already duplicated and secured. They'll never find the originals, even if they tear the place apart. Good. Ethan stood to leave, but Marcus stopped him. There's more. Clara's been asking around about divorce lawyers. She's planning to clean you out completely. Let her try. The next few weeks established a routine. Ethan worked construction jobs, building his reputation as the defeated husband while gathering more evidence against the lovers. He watched through the surveillance system as their relationship began to show cracks. Clara's attempts to contact him grew more frequent, her messages a mixture of guilt and justification. He saved each one, adding them to his growing collection of evidence. One evening, she appeared at his apartment, makeup perfectly applied despite the late hour. We need to talk, Ethan. He let her in, noting how she flinched at the sparse furnishings. Nice place, she lied. Very. Bachelor. What do you want, Clara? She perched on the edge of his single chair, crossing her legs in a practiced motion. I've been thinking about us, about everything that's happened. Have you? Don't be like that. She leaned forward, using the move that had captured his attention years ago. We could work this out. I made a mistake with Damien. He's not who I thought he was. Ethan watched her performance with detached interest. And who did you think he was? I don't know anymore. She stood, moving closer to him. But I know who you are. Strong, dependable, forgiving. Forgiving? The word came out as a whisper, but something in his tone made her step back. Is that what you think I am? Ethan? He moved then, closing the distance between them with predatory grace. You sold my cabin, Clara. You moved your lover into my house. You spent my money, wore my ring while you shared his bed. Each statement drove her back another step until she hit the wall. And now you think I'll forgive you? You're scaring me, she whispered. Good. He stepped back, his face once again an expressionless mask. Go home, Clara. Go back to Damien. You deserve each other. She fled, leaving behind the scent of fear and expensive perfume. Ethan waited until her car started before making a call. It's time, he told Marcus. Start the transfers. The next morning, Damien discovered his accounts had been frozen. His creditors, mysteriously informed of his whereabouts, began calling. Clara found her credit cards declined, her secret accounts emptied. Ethan watched through the surveillance system as their comfortable world began to crumble. They fought, accusations flying, each blaming the other for their misfortunes. Neither suspected that their real enemy was just getting started. He had given them rope, and now he would watch them hang themselves. Chapter 3. The First Strike. The break-in was executed. Ethan moved through his former home like a ghost, his footsteps silent on the imported tiles Clara had installed. The security system, which he himself had installed, lay dormant, its codes unchanged despite his departure. Amateur mistake. In the master bedroom, Clara's jewelry box sat on the vanity, a gaudy testament to her materialistic nature. Ethan selected pieces, the diamond necklace he'd given her on their 5th anniversary, the sapphire earrings from their last Christmas together, and several expensive items Damien had bought her with stolen money. The safe in Damien's office yielded more treasures, documents detailing his fraudulent schemes, a burner phone containing messages to his criminal contacts, and a thick envelope of cash marked with the Castellano family's distinctive rubber band. Before leaving, Ethan placed a handwritten note on Clara's pillow. You took what was mine. Now I take what's yours. The next morning, Clara's scream echoed through the house. Damien rushed in, his face flushing with anger as he read the note. It had to be him, Clara paced frantically. The jewelry, your documents, he took everything. Damien grabbed her arm roughly. What documents? What exactly did he take from my office? I don't know. You never tell me anything about your business. She wrenched free, rubbing her arm. This is your fault. You pushed too far with the cabin sale. My fault? Damien laughed bitterly. Who begged me to help her escape her boring life? Who promised her husband would never fight back? Their argument was interrupted by a phone call. One of Damien's business partners had received an anonymous email containing proof of their illegal dealings. The partner was cutting ties immediately. Fix this, the man growled before hanging up. Or the Castellanos will hear about everything. Damien hurled his phone against the wall. That bastard's smarter than you said. He's been planning this. What are you going to do? Clara asked, fear creeping into her voice. We need money. Damien's eyes gleamed dangerously. Your husband's vintage car collection. How much is it worth? Clara wrapped her arms around herself. You can't. Those cars meant everything to him. He meant everything to you once, didn't he? Damien sneered. Make the calls. Get the papers ready for sale. Later that day, Clara sat in her luxury SUV outside Ethan's apartment. She watched him return from work, his clothes dusty from construction, his movements betraying no sign of the cunning opponent he'd become. She jumped when he suddenly appeared at her window. Taking up stalking, Clara? The cars, she blurted out. Damien wants to sell your cars. Ethan's face remained impassive. They're in your name now. Remember the papers you had me sign while I was boring you? Please, she whispered. Don't let him do this. Like you didn't let him sell my cabin? He stepped back from the car. Actions have consequences, Clara. It's time you learned that. Tears streaked her designer makeup. What happened to you? You were never this cruel. I was always this person. You just never bothered to look past the surface. He turned away. Sell the cars, Clara. Add them to the list of things you'll regret. That night, Ethan sat in his apartment, reviewing footage from the hidden cameras. Clara and Damien's relationship was fracturing under the pressure. Good. Broken people made mistakes, and he would be there to capitalize on each one. His phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Local newspaper got the evidence. Story runs tomorrow. Want me to send you a preview? Ethan replied affirmatively, and soon his screen filled with tomorrow's headline. Local business figure linked to criminal enterprise. The article detailed some of Damien's smaller schemes, carefully selected to rattle him without revealing their full hand. Another message from Marcus followed. Clara's been Googling criminal defense lawyers. She's starting to realize how deep she's in. Perfect. The fear was taking root, just as he'd planned. Soon, very soon, he would reveal his master stroke, the truth about the cabin and what lay hidden within its walls. Ethan poured himself a drink and raised it in a mock toast to the surveillance feed showing Clara crying in their former bedroom while Damien raged on the phone with his creditors. The first strike had landed. The war had begun, and Ethan Blackwood never lost a war. Chapter 4. The Unraveling. Clara's hands trembled as she gripped her phone, reading Ethan's text message for the 20th time. The cabin, rigged with explosives. The words bored into her mind, each syllable a hammer blow against her composure. Damien. She burst into his home office, interrupting a heated phone call. We need to talk. Now. He waved her away, continuing his conversation. Listen, I can get you the money by Friday. Just give me. The other party hung up, leaving Damien cursing at dead air. The cabin, Clara blurted out. Ethan says it's rigged with explosives. Damien laughed, but the sound held no humor. And you believe him? Your boring, predictable husband suddenly turned into a demolitions expert? You don't know him like I do. Clara paced the room, her designer heels clicking against the tiles. He's different now. Colder. More dangerous. He's playing mind games, Damien snapped. And you're falling for them like an amateur. Clara's phone buzzed. Another message from Ethan. Tick-tock. She showed it to Damien, whose face darkened. That bastard thinks he can threaten us? I'll show him who he's dealing with. Before he could continue, his laptop chimed with an incoming email. His face drained of color as he read it. What? Clara moved behind him, reading over his shoulder. The screen displayed his account balances, all zeros. Impossible, he muttered, typing frantically. The accounts were secure. Nobody could. Another email arrived. This one from Marcus, Ethan's hacker friend. Looking for something? Damien slammed the laptop shut. Your husband's friend? He's gotten into our accounts. Our accounts? Clara's voice rose. What do you mean, our accounts? Damien avoided her gaze. I may have opened some accounts in your name. For business purposes. You what? Clara grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. What kind of business? The kind that pays for your shopping sprees, he snarled, jerking away from her. Or did you think designer bags grew on trees? A notification pinged on Clara's phone, a news alert. Her stomach dropped as she read the headline. Local developer linked to money laundering scheme. The article named several of Damien's associates who had been arrested in a morning raid. Your friends are falling like dominoes, she whispered. Damien's phone rang, the Castellano family's enforcer. He answered with shaking hands, listening as the man detailed exactly what would happen if he didn't repay his debts immediately. I need air, Clara announced, heading for the door. Damien caught her arm roughly. Where do you think you're going? Let go of me. She wrenched free. This is your mess. You fix it. Our mess, he corrected, his grip tightening. Don't forget who sold the cabin, who signed the papers. Your fingerprints are all over this, sweetheart. The slap echoed through the room. Clara stared at her hand in shock. then at Damien's reddening cheek. His eyes turned murderous. You shouldn't have done that. The backhand caught her across the face, sending her stumbling against the desk. Pain bloomed across her cheek as tears sprang to her eyes. I own you, Damien growled, both legally and otherwise. So sit down, shut up and let me think. Clara touched her throbbing face, reality crashing down around her. This man, this monster, was who she had betrayed Ethan for. The thought made her stomach turn. She fled the house, ignoring Damien's shouts. Her car responded to muscle memory, carrying her through familiar streets until she found herself outside Ethan's apartment building. He opened the door before she could knock. Right on schedule. The accounts, she said, stepping inside. What did you do? I didn't do anything. He gestured to his laptop, where multiple screens showed Damien's financial transactions. Your boyfriend did it all himself. I just made sure the right people found out. The police will find quite an interesting paper trail. Ethan's voice remained calm, controlled, leading right to your door. Clara sank onto his sparse couch. I'll tell them everything. About Damien, the fraud, and the cabin sale? Ethan raised an eyebrow. The documents you forged? The money you helped him launder? I didn't know. You knew enough. He cut her off. You knew what kind of man he was, what he was capable of. You chose him anyway. Clara stood, desperation lending her courage. Help me, Ethan. Please. I'll do anything. Anything? He studied her, his expression unreadable. Even help me destroy him? Yes, she whispered, not knowing she was signing both their death warrants. Ethan nodded once. Then let's begin. Back at the house, Damien was making frantic calls to his remaining allies. Each conversation ended the same way. Doors closing, bridges burning. He slammed the phone down after the fifth rejection. His computer chimed again. Another email, this time containing photos, him meeting with known criminals, exchanging briefcases, making deals in dark corners. The subject line read, Smile for the camera. Damien's world was crumbling, and he knew exactly who to blame. He pulled up a contact he had hoped never to use, a man who specialized in permanent solutions to temporary problems. I have a job for you, he said into the phone. It's about my girlfriend's ex-husband. As night fell, 3 separate plans were set in motion. Clara, trembling in Ethan's apartment, agreed to wear a wire. Damien, desperate and cornered, arranged for a hitman. And Ethan, watching it all through his surveillance network, prepared to spring his trap. The war had entered its final phase, and only one person knew all the players on the board. Chapter 5. The Trap. The cabin stood silent in the mountain clearing, its windows dark against the afternoon light. Damien killed the engine of his Mercedes, checking his phone one last time. The message from the anonymous investor still glowed on the screen. Interested in your proposition? Meet at the cabin. Come alone. He needed this deal. The Castellanos were breathing down his neck. His accounts were frozen, and Clara had vanished after their fight. This mysterious investor promised enough money to solve all his problems, assuming it wasn't a trap. The cabin door creaked open at his touch. Damien stepped inside, his designer shoes leaving prints in the dust. The place still bore signs of Ethan's craftsmanship, hand-carved moldings, custom cabinets, attention to detail that spoke of dedication and patience. Hello? His voice echoed in the empty space. Anyone here? You're early. Ethan's voice came from behind him. Damien spun around, reaching for the gun in his jacket. Ethan moved faster, disarming him with a brutal twist that sent Damien to his knees. Amateur move, Ethan said, examining the weapon before tucking it into his own waistband. Just like selling my cabin. If you're going to kill me, get it over with. Damien tried to sound defiant, but fear crept into his voice. Kill you? Ethan laughed. That would be too easy. He tossed a thick folder onto the floor between them. I'd rather destroy you. Damien's eyes widened as he recognized the contents. Bank statements, photographs, transcripts of conversations he thought were private. How did you? I've been watching you for months. Ethan circled him slowly. Learning your habits, your weaknesses, the way you manipulate women into funding your gambling addiction, the money you launder for the Castellanos. You don't know what you're dealing with, Damien warned. No, you don't know what you're dealing with. Ethan's voice turned harsh. Did Clara tell you how I built this cabin? Piece by piece, year after year. The same way I built the case against you. Damien lunged forward, trying to tackle Ethan. The fight was brief and brutal. Ethan's fist connected with Damien's jaw, sending him sprawling. Before he could recover, Ethan's boot pressed against his throat. The hitman you hired? Ethan increased the pressure slightly. He works for me now. Amazing what people will do when you know their secrets. Please, Damien choked out. I'll leave town. You'll never see me again. Like you left your other victims? The ones whose lives you destroyed? Ethan removed his foot, letting Damien gasp for air. No, you're going to face what you've done. A noise from the bedroom made Damien turn. Clara stepped out, tears streaming down her face. She held up her phone, still recording. You recorded me? Damien's face contorted with rage. You treacherous bitch. He launched himself at Clara, but Ethan intercepted him. The fight that followed was savage. Damien fought like a cornered animal, landing several solid hits, but Ethan's rage was cold and focused. Each punch, each kick was delivered with precision born of planning and purpose. When it ended, Damien lay unconscious on the cabin floor. Clara huddled in a corner, shaking as she watched Ethan zip-tie Damien's hands. The police are on their way, she whispered. Ethan nodded, producing another folder. Make sure they get these too. Your signed confession, details of your involvement in his schemes. What? Clara stared at him in horror. But I helped you. I wore the wire. You betrayed me. Ethan cut her off. Did you think helping me trap him would erase that? Ethan, please. She reached for him, but he stepped back. I love. Don't. His voice could have frozen fire. You made your choice when you sold my home. Now you both pay the price. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Clara looked at the folder, then at Ethan. You planned this from the beginning. The explosive story, letting me think I could earn your forgiveness. I learned from the best. His smile held no warmth. You taught me how to lie convincingly. The police arrived to find Damien unconscious, Clara in tears, and 2 folders of evidence that would send them both to prison. Ethan watched from the trees as they were led away in handcuffs, his face betraying no emotion. The trap had sprung perfectly, but this was just the beginning of their punishment. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. The courtroom buzzed with whispered conversations as the judge entered. Ethan sat in the back row, watching Clara and Damien in their prison jumpsuits, their former glamour reduced to pallid skin and dark circles under their eyes. The evidence was damning. Financial records, recorded conversations, signed confessions. The prosecutor painted a picture of greed, manipulation, and fraud that spanned years. Clara's lawyer attempted to portray her as another victim of Damien's schemes, but the paper trail told a different story. The defendant, Clara Blackwood, the judge's voice cut through the murmurs, having been found guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and accessory to criminal enterprise, is hereby sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Clara's shoulders shook with silent sobs. She turned to look at Ethan, but he had already stood and was walking toward the exit. Damien's sentence came next, 15 years for his more extensive crimes. He remained stone-faced, but his hands trembled as the bailiff led him away. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for Ethan's comment. He pushed past them, ignoring their questions about his feelings toward his ex-wife's sentencing. Let them speculate. His revenge spoke for itself. At home, he found the first letter from Clara waiting in his mailbox. Her precise handwriting filled 3 pages with apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness. He read it once, then filed it away in a drawer. It would not be the last. The news coverage painted him as the victim who had exposed a criminal enterprise. None of them knew the full extent of his manipulation, how he had orchestrated each step of their downfall. Let them see what they wanted to see. His phone rang, Marcus with an update. Damien's former associates are making noise. The Castellanos aren't happy about losing their money man. Let them come, Ethan replied. He had planned for this too. The threats arrived as expected. First phone calls, then notes left on his door. One morning he found his car's tires slashed. Amateur intimidation tactics that made him smile. He was in his workshop when they finally made their move. 3 men, armed and confident, thinking they were hunting prey instead of walking into another trap. Mr. Blackwood, their leader, called out, gesturing with his weapon. The Castellanos send their regards. Ethan set down his tools carefully. I've been expecting you. The fight was quick and decisive. Ethan had chosen the battleground, rigged it to his advantage. When it was over, 3 broken men lay groaning on the floor, surrounded by the implements of their intended violence. He knelt beside their leader. Tell your employers that Damien's debts died with his freedom. Push this further, and I'll do to them what I did to him. They left with broken bones and wounded pride. The message would be delivered. The Castellanos were businessmen above all else. They knew when a venture wasn't worth the cost. Later that night, alone in his house, Ethan reviewed his security footage. Clara's last letter lay unopened on his desk. The drawer contained all her previous attempts at reconciliation, each one filed away like evidence in a case he had already won. His phone chimed with a message from the prison administrator. Clara wanted to arrange a visit. He deleted it without responding. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. The news had moved on to other scandals, other crimes. His name faded from the headlines, which suited him fine. He had never wanted fame, only justice, or perhaps revenge. The line between the two had blurred long ago. In his garage, the spaces where his vintage cars had stood remained empty. Clara had managed to sell them before her arrest, the money lost to Damien's debts. It didn't matter. They were just things, and things could be replaced. What couldn't be replaced was trust, or loyalty, or the years he had wasted loving a woman who had seen his strength as a resource to be exploited. The cabin's demolition was scheduled for next month. He would not attend. Let it fall. Let the mountains reclaim the land. He had built it once as a testament to love. Its destruction would serve as a monument to betrayal. Ethan poured himself a drink and raised it to the security monitors, showing his empty house. To new beginnings, he murmured. But deep down, he knew there would be no new beginnings. Not really. Only variations on old endings, played out again and again until the pain of betrayal faded into something manageable. He was different now. Harder. Colder. The man Clara had married would have forgiven her. That man died the day she sold his sanctuary. This new version of Ethan Blackwood had no room for forgiveness in his heart. Only the cold satisfaction of revenge perfectly executed. The war was over. He had won. And the price of victory was worth. Chapter 7. The Final Gambit. Prison walls couldn't contain Damien's rage. In his cell at the minimum security facility, he plotted his revenge against the man who had destroyed his life. His contacts on the outside were limited, but he still had one card left to play. I need you to handle something for me, he told his visitor, a burly man with prison gang tattoos. A problem named Ethan Blackwood. The man nodded, sliding a paper across the table. It'll cost you. Money's not an issue. Damien's eyes gleamed with malice. I have accounts even he couldn't find. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office at the domestic abuse charity he'd founded, reviewing security footage from his home surveillance system. Marcus had warned him about unusual activity around his property. Men watching, taking photos, studying his routines. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Watch your back, Blackwood. Ethan saved the number, adding it to his growing collection of evidence. Let them come. He had been preparing for this since the day he sent Damien to prison. The attack came 3 days later. 2 men ambushed him in the parking garage after work. They had weapons, training, and the element of surprise. What they didn't have was the ruthless determination that had kept Ethan alive all these years. The fight was brutal and quick. Ethan's fist crushed one attacker's throat while his boot shattered the other's knee. As they lay groaning on the concrete, he retrieved their phones, finding messages that led straight back to Damien. Tell your employer, Ethan said, his voice cold as he stood over them, that he just bought himself 10 more years in a maximum security cell. His prediction proved accurate. The failed assassination attempt, combined with the evidence Ethan provided to the authorities, earned Damien a transfer to a supermax facility and an extended sentence. But Ethan wasn't finished. He had one more card to play in this game. The prison visitor's room was stark and uninviting as Clara sat across from Damien, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the designer clothes she once wore. Her hand instinctively moved to cover her slightly swollen belly. "You're showing," Damien noted, his eyes fixing on her midsection. "That's not why I'm here." Clara's voice trembled slightly. "The DA offered me a deal. They want me to testify against you about everything. The fraud, the money laundering, all of it." Damien's face darkened. "You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I?" Clara leaned forward. "You used me, Damien. Set me up to take the fall while you played your games. Did you think I wouldn't figure it out? You came to me," he snarled. "Begged me to save you from your boring life. Remember? And look where that got me." She gestured at her prison uniform. "Pregnant and facing 5 years because you couldn't control your gambling." Guards approached as Damien's voice rose. "You testify against me and You'll what?" Clara stood, one hand protectively over her stomach. "There's nothing left for you to take." In the courthouse gallery, Ethan watched Clara's testimony with calculated interest. She spoke for hours, detailing Damien's crimes, his manipulation, the web of lies that had ensnared them both. Her voice broke only once, when describing how she had betrayed her husband by selling his beloved cabin. The testimony sealed Damien's fate. The judge's decision to transfer him to maximum security was immediate and final. As Clara was led away, her eyes met Ethan's. He saw the question there, the hope for forgiveness. He turned and walked out, letting his silence answer for him. Later that night, in his home office, Ethan reviewed the day's events. Clara's pregnancy complicated matters, but not insurmountably. He had already begun making arrangements to ensure the child would be placed with a good family. His phone rang, Marcus with an update. "Damien's being transferred tomorrow. Want me to make sure he has an uncomfortable journey?" "No," Ethan replied. "Let him stew in his new home. Knowing he's powerless is punishment enough." The next morning brought news that Damien had arrived at the Supermax facility. Ethan marked the occasion by finalizing the paperwork for his charity's newest initiative, a program to help children affected by domestic violence and betrayal. He would never forgive Clara or Damien, but he could use their destruction to help others rebuild their lives. It was the kind of revenge that would outlast them all. Chapter 8. The New Beginning. The nursery ward of the prison hospital buzzed with activity as Clara went into labor. 9 months of carrying Damien's child had taken their toll, leaving her exhausted and alone. Miles away, Ethan sat in his office, reviewing the adoption papers. The family he had chosen was perfect, successful, stable, with no connection to Clara or Damien's sordid past. The child would have a chance at a normal life. "The baby's here," Marcus announced, forwarding the hospital report. "Healthy girl, 7 pounds. Ethan studied the information dispassionately. "Make sure all the paperwork is in order. I want the adoption finalized before Clara has a chance to change her mind." "You're really going through with this?" Marcus asked. "Taking her child?" "I'm giving that child a chance," Ethan corrected. "Something its parents never deserved." The adoption process moved swiftly, greased by Ethan's influence and resources. Clara, still recovering in the prison hospital, signed the papers without protest. She knew it was the best option, perhaps her only chance to do something right. As Ethan rebuilt his life, he found himself drawn to Sarah Chun, a prosecutor who had worked on Damien's case. She was brilliant, principled, and understood the darkness that drove him. "You're different from my usual clients," she told him over dinner. "Most victims want to forget. You built something meaningful from your pain." "Pain is a tool," he replied, studying her over his wine glass. "Like any tool, its value depends on how you use it." Their relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared understanding. Sarah never asked him to forgive Clara, never suggested he should let go of his anger. She recognized the steel in his spine for what it was, not bitterness, but strength. In prison, Clara received updates about her daughter through official channels. The adoptive parents sent photographs, carefully screened by Ethan's lawyers. The child was thriving, growing strong in a home untainted by betrayal. One evening, as Ethan and Sarah reviewed cases for his charity, she asked the question others had avoided. "Do you ever regret not giving Clara a second chance?" "Second chances are earned," he said, his voice firm. She made her choice the day she sold my cabin.
Everything after that was consequence.
And the child will grow up never knowing how her parents betrayed each other. He closed the file he was reading. That's the greatest gift I could give her. Clara's letters arrived regularly now, each one detailing her progress in prison programs, her hopes for redemption. Ethan filed them away unread, adding to the archive of her attempts at reconciliation. Sarah watched him organize the letters one night. You keep them all. Why? Reminders, he explained, of who she was, who I'll never be again. Their life together took shape around his mission. The charity grew, helping more victims rebuild their lives. Ethan's reputation as an advocate for the betrayed attracted attention, funding, support, but he never softened, never wavered. The man who had built a cabin with love was gone, replaced by someone harder, more focused. Sarah understood this was not a flaw but a foundation, the bedrock upon which he had rebuilt himself. One morning, a letter arrived from Clara, different from the others. Inside was a simple message. Thank you for saving our daughter from becoming like us. Ethan added it to his collection without comment. Some debts could never be repaid, some wounds never healed. He had accepted this truth the day he chose revenge over forgiveness. Chapter 9. The Legacy. The cabin's demolition drew a small crowd. Locals who remembered when Ethan built it, reporters attracted by the story's notorious ending, and a few of Clara's former friends, hoping for one last glimpse of the drama that had captivated their town. Ethan stood apart from them all, Sarah by his side, as the wrecking crew moved into position. The cabin that had been his dream, then his weapon, would soon be memory. Wait, one of the workers called out. There's something in the foundation. In a hidden compartment, preserved against time and weather, lay a letter. Ethan recognized his father's handwriting immediately. My son, the letter began. I watched you build this cabin the way I watched you build your life, with patience, skill, and determination. You faced each challenge as I knew you would, with the strength that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. This cabin is more than wood and nails. It's a testament to the man you've become, the legacy you'll leave. Whatever storms you weather, remember, true strength isn't in never falling, but in how you rise afterward. Dad. Ethan folded the letter carefully, tucking it into his pocket. The demolition resumed, reducing his father's legacy and his own pain to rubble. Later, in his office at the charity, he finalized plans for the property's future. The mountain site would become a retreat for abuse survivors, a place where others could rebuild their lives as he had rebuilt his. Clara's release date approached, marked on his calendar like any other business appointment. Her final letter arrived a week before. I won't ask for forgiveness. We both know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now. The cabin wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of everything I was too blind to value. You've turned our tragedy into something meaningful. That's a kind of revenge I never saw coming. He never replied, but he did attend her release, watching from a distance as she left the prison gates. She looked older, subdued, her designer tastes replaced by simple clothes and quiet dignity. Sarah found him in his office afterward, staring at the cabin's blueprints. Regrets? She asked. No, he answered truthfully. Just memories. The charity's annual gala brought unexpected news. Clara had been spotted in a distant city, working with a women's shelter, using her experience to help others avoid her mistakes. She never contacted Ethan again. Their daughter, now 5, thrived with her adoptive family. Ethan maintained distant surveillance, ensuring she remained protected from her biological parents' legacy. The quarterly reports showed a happy, well-adjusted child who would never know the price of betrayal. Damien's death in prison barely made the local news. A brief mention of a career criminal who died as he lived, alone and unmourned. Ethan marked the occasion by doubling his charity's funding for the year. On the mountain where the cabin once stood, the retreat center rose like a phoenix from the ashes of his past. Each room bore a plaque with his father's words. True strength isn't in never falling, but in how you rise afterward. The legacy of betrayal had been transformed into a foundation for healing. It wasn't forgiveness. Ethan would never grant that. It was something harder, colder, more lasting. The conversion of pain into purpose. Sarah understood this better than anyone. You didn't just survive, she told him one evening. You turned their betrayal into a weapon against itself. The best revenge, he replied, isn't just destroying your enemies. It's using their destruction to build something they can never touch. The mountain air carried the scent of new wood and fresh paint as the retreat center neared completion. Ethan stood on the spot where his cabin's foundation had been, the letter from his father worn soft in his pocket. He had built a sanctuary once, believing in love. He had destroyed it, proving the power of revenge. Now he built again, not with forgiveness, but with the cold, clear purpose of a man who had learned that some betrayals must never be forgotten. It was his final victory, not just over Clara and Damien, but over the man he had been. That man died with the cabin's sale. What rose in his place was something stronger, harder, unforgiving. And in that transformation lay the truest revenge of all. Epilogue. A decade later. The price of betrayal. 10 years had transformed the mountain landscape where Ethan's cabin once stood. The Blackwood Center for Healing sprawled across the property, its modern buildings a testament to transformation through adversity. The retreat center had helped thousands of survivors rebuild their lives, each success story another brick in the foundation of Ethan's legacy. At 52, Ethan Blackwood's appearance had barely changed. His hair showed touches of gray at the temples, but his frame remained powerful, his presence commanding. The decade had only hardened his resolve, sharpened his focus. The charity he'd built from the ashes of betrayal had grown into a national organization, with centers in 12 states. Sarah Chin Blackwood, his wife of 8 years, directed the legal division of their foundation. Their partnership, built on mutual respect and shared purpose, had weathered challenges that would have broken lesser bonds. They had never had children, a conscious choice. Ethan's role in his ex-wife's daughter's life remained that of a distant guardian, never directly involved but always vigilant. In his private office at the center, Ethan reviewed the latest report on Clara's daughter, Emma, now 15. The adoption had been the one mercy he'd granted, ensuring the girl grew up free from her biological parents' toxic legacy. Emma excelled in school, played violin, and showed a talent for mathematics. Her adoptive parents, carefully chosen and generously supported through Ethan's hidden channels, had given her everything Clara and Damien couldn't: stability, love, and a future untainted by betrayal. The quarterly audit came in, Sarah announced, entering his office with a stack of documents. The foundation's growth exceeded projections again. Ethan nodded, closing Emma's file. Marcus's security upgrades? Implemented across all facilities. Sarah sat across from him, studying her husband's expression. He found another letter from Clara. Clara's attempts at contact had dwindled over the years, but never completely ceased. After her release, she had moved across the country, building a quiet life working at a women's shelter in Seattle. Her letters arrived annually now, each one carefully screened by their security team before reaching Ethan's archives. "File it with the others," he said, his voice neutral. The collection of unopened letters filled a drawer in his office safe, a record of guilt he would never acknowledge. Sarah touched his hand gently. "She's dying, Ethan. Cancer. The doctors give her 6 months." The news stirred no emotion in him. Clara had died for him the day she sold his cabin. Her physical death would change nothing. "Have Marcus ensure Emma's trust fund is properly structured," he replied. "I want no possibility of inheritance complications." Their conversation was interrupted by a call from the prison liaison. Damien's death 5 years ago had seemed to end that chapter, but his legacy of destruction lingered. Former associates still occasionally surfaced, seeking revenge or redemption. Each threat was met with the same ruthless efficiency that had characterized Ethan's original vengeance. "Another of Damien's old contacts made parole," Sarah reported after the call. "Marcus is monitoring the situation." Ethan's network of surveillance and security had only grown more sophisticated over the years. Marcus, now head of their cybersecurity division, maintained an invisible web of protection around everyone connected to their organization. The afternoon brought a board meeting for the foundation. Ethan watched his team present reports on their latest initiatives: programs for children affected by domestic violence, legal aid for survivors, rehabilitation services for families torn apart by betrayal. His revenge had evolved into something larger than himself, a force for transformation that would outlive its origins. Later, during their drive home, Sarah broke their comfortable silence. Emma's adoptive parents called. "She's asking questions about her biological family." "They know the protocol," Ethan replied. The adoption agreement included strict guidelines about disclosure. Emma would learn nothing until she turned 21, and even then, only if she chose to. "She has your determination," Sarah observed. "The same drive to understand, to build, to overcome. She has her adoptive parents' values," Ethan corrected.
That's what matters.
At home, their modern house bore little resemblance to the mountain cabin that had started everything. No handcrafted furniture, no rustic touches. Ethan no longer built things with his hands. His tools now were influence, resources, and unwavering purpose. The next morning brought news from Seattle. Clara had been hospitalized, her condition deteriorating rapidly. With her death approaching, she had made one final request, a meeting with Ethan. "You don't owe her anything," Sarah reminded him as he considered the request. "No," he agreed. "I don't." But he went anyway, not out of compassion or closure, but to witness the final chapter of a story he had orchestrated. The hospital room was stark, clinical, a fitting setting for their last encounter. Clara barely resembled the beautiful, manipulative woman who had betrayed him. Cancer had hollowed her cheeks, dulled her once bright eyes. Her hand trembled as she reached for a manila envelope on her bedside table. "I won't ask for forgiveness," she whispered, her voice rough. "I just want you to know that I understand now. What I destroyed wasn't just a cabin or a marriage.
It was faith itself."
Ethan said nothing, his face impassive. "Emma," Clara continued, pushing the envelope toward him. "I've never contacted her, never tried to interfere. But I wrote her letters, one for each birthday. They're all here. When she's ready. If she ever wants to know." "You lost the right to make requests," Ethan replied, but he took the envelope. Not for Clara's sake, but for Emma's potential future questions. "Your charity," Clara managed a weak smile. "It helps people. That's more than I ever did." "Your choices helped create it," Ethan acknowledged coldly. "Your betrayal taught others what to avoid." He left without saying goodbye, the envelope heavy in his hand. Outside, Seattle's rain matched his mood, not sad, not angry, just resolute. Back at the center, life continued its carefully structured pattern. The foundation's work expanded, touching more lives, building more success stories. Sarah's legal team won groundbreaking cases, setting precedents that would protect future victims of betrayal. Emma's 16th birthday came and went. Her adoptive parents sent photos, a bright-eyed teenager with Clara's features, but none of her mother's darkness. Ethan added them to his files, along with Clara's birthday letters. A legacy held in trust, waiting for questions that might never come. Marcus, now married with children of his own, maintained his vigilance over their digital empire. His daughter interned at the foundation, learning the complex web of protection her father had helped build. "She asks about the old days," Marcus told Ethan during one of their security briefings. "How it all started." "Tell her the truth," Ethan replied. Some betrayals forge stronger steel. The years had proven him right. His refusal to forgive hadn't frozen him in bitterness. It had fueled an engine of change. The foundation helped people rebuild without demanding they forget or forgive. It was a philosophy born from his own transformation. Clara died in early spring, her passing marked only by a brief note in their security logs. Ethan added the information to Emma's file, another piece of history she might someday want to know. The foundation hosted its annual gala the following week. Survivors shared their stories, donors pledged support, and Ethan watched from the background as his legacy continued to grow. Sarah found him there, understanding as always. "You've built something extraordinary," she said, taking his hand. "We all did," he corrected. "Every person who chose to rebuild rather than break." The mountain property had changed beyond recognition, the cabin's foundation buried beneath the center's main building. But Ethan kept one thing from those days, his father's letter, found in the cabin's ruins. Its wisdom had proven prophetic. True strength lay not in never falling, but in how you rise. As he stood on the center's observation deck, overlooking the grounds where his cabin once stood, Ethan reflected on the decade's transformations. His revenge had been complete, but its aftermath had created something unexpected, a framework for others to rebuild their shattered lives. Emma would turn 21 in a few years, gaining the right to learn her history if she chose. Clara's letters waited in his safe, along with documentation of everything that had happened. The truth would be hers to discover or ignore. Sarah joined him on the deck, their silent understanding a contrast to his tumultuous past with Clara. They watched the sunset together, secure in the knowledge that their work would continue, helping others rise from betrayal's ashes. The cabin was gone, Damien was dead, Clara had followed, but Ethan Blackwood's true revenge lived on, not in destruction, but in the strength he helped others find. He had transformed betrayal's poison into purpose, building a legacy that would endure long after the original wound had faded into history. As darkness fell over the mountain, lights came on across the center's campus. In rooms and counseling sessions throughout the complex, people worked to rebuild their lives, each one adding another layer to the foundation Ethan had built from his pain. He hadn't forgiven. He never would. But he had done something more powerful. He had turned his vengeance into victory, not just for himself, but for anyone strong enough to rise from betrayal's ruins and build again. The cabin's revenge had become a beacon, guiding others through their own darkness toward a rebuilt life. It wasn't the ending Clara had hoped for when she begged forgiveness, nor the defeat Damien had plotted from his prison cell. It was something harder, colder, more lasting. A legacy carved from betrayal's bedrock, as solid as the mountain itself. Ethan's final victory wasn't in destroying those who had wronged him, but in ensuring their betrayal served a greater purpose. He had built an empire on the ashes of their destruction, a monument not to forgiveness, but to the power of transforming pain into purpose. And in that transformation lay the truest revenge of all, the knowledge that his response to betrayal would outlive them all, helping others find strength in their darkest moments, building future victories from present defeats. The cabin was gone, but its lesson remained. Some fires don't destroy, they forge. Some betrayals don't break, they build. And some revenge isn't about ending things, but about creating something unbreakable from the wreckage. That was Ethan Blackwood's ultimate legacy. Not the man who had loved and lost, but the man who had turned loss into an instrument of change. The cabin's revenge had become something greater than vengeance, more lasting than hatred, more powerful than forgiveness. It had become hope. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.